So welcome everybody to our webinar here to help celebrate Earth Day. And today we are going to be talking about rain barrels and rainwater harvesting with Chris Corvetti. This is being sponsored by, is it Illumina and the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. So the next slide. Thank you. All attendees will be muted by default. The instructor will pause periodically for questions. We encourage you to ask questions. You can either use the Q&A during the instruction or presentation, or you can raise your hand and we will get to you. We'll let you know that the webinar is being recorded and will be available on the BOSCA website in about 2 days. So you can always review the presentation. Okay, next screen. So about BOSCA, we represent 26 agencies, including cities, water districts, and a water company and a university that purchase water wholesale from the San Francisco Regional Water System. BOSCA member agencies provide water to 1.8 million people and over 40,000 businesses and community organizations in Alameda, Santa Clara County, and San Mateo County. And BOSCA's goal is high quality supply of water at a fair price. Next. So with our landscape education program, what we're trying to do is educate people and let you know that outdoor water use represent the single largest untapped opportunity for water conservation in the BOSCA service area. And outdoor water use reduction through the use of water efficient plants and innovative techniques can help conserve water and ensure that the future water supply needs of our community are met. And additional ways to save, if you're in the BOSCA, jurisdiction, some of our agencies do have a lawn be gone program. So with that, you get paid, $1 to $4 per square foot of replacing a lawn. And a lawn is a very thirsty plant that a lot of people have, and you can see by the pictures, there's some really lovely alternatives to that. In addition to that, we do have a rain barrel program. And then we also have a smart controller. You can go to the next one, the smart controller. Again, if your water agency participates in the program. And then also with our Lawn Be Gone program, there is an add-on to do a rain garden rebate program. And you can all find this on our website. And then here are some of our future classes that are coming up. And, feel free to go to our website and sign up for any of them that sound interesting to you. We really are here to educate people, and they're all free. So, and of course they are recorded. So you can always visit them again. And I think there's one more slide. Yes, and so you can always go to this website here, bayareagardening.org, and, get some ideas for working on your landscape and gardening here in the Bay Area. And I think next we go to Chris's presentation.
Hello.
So Chris, welcome. Thank you for doing this for all of us. We all need to be educated.
Thank you for having me here. I am gonna share a link in the chat box for everyone to click on. It's gonna take you to the Menti website, which is gonna allow you to participate in this part in the beginning. And we just have 2 questions. You can give up to 5 answers for the first one, and the second one is multiple choice. And just to break it up a little bit. So what do you think of when you hear the phrase rainwater harvesting, which is what we're going to be talking and learning about today? Oops. Is anybody able to open that? Okay, we got recycling water. sustainability, you're allowed to put in up to 5. Being smart, best tasting water, barrels, mosquito larvae, I hope not. Recycling water, sustainable. There's some good keywords. Also, someone say using natural rainwater to water our plants. Conservation, saving money. Okay, so we've got some good words here. I'm gonna go ahead and advance to the next slide and see how many folks already have rain barrels or rain gardens. So we've got a lot of people that are here to learn more, and we don't have any already existing rain barrels. So we're gonna learn a little bit more about that. So why harvest rainwater? You guys answered a lot of the big questions. And one of the biggest answers is we want to save water. So we live in the Bay Area and we live in California. We don't get a lot of rain. And a lot of our water actually doesn't even come from our groundwater here. It gets piped in all the way from the Sierras. We get Hetch Hetchy water that comes to us. So we want to save that Hetch Hetchy water and use local water that comes to us in the rain when we get rain. Well, we don't get a lot of rain throughout the year. Usually when we get a good event, we get enough rain that it can be stored for later. There are different ways to do this, and we already hit some of the reasons we want to do this. But you want to have that connection to nature. When we live in such an urban environment, you want to remember that we are connected to nature. They really don't require much maintenance. It's a lot less maintenance than a traditional watering system. You're going to lower your water bill because you've got this free water coming right from the sky. Your plants are going to be healthier. The rainwater is unchlorinated. You'll get a little bit less erosion. Local flooding will be reduced. Get a little bit more groundwater replenishment. And a really big one is reducing polluted runoff. So we want our creeks to be healthier. Some of the local sources we have for stormwater pollution are pictured here. So we think about pet waste. It's really important to bag all of our pet waste. We think about all of our cars we have on the roads. Sometimes those cars leak oil. You might get some gas leaking. You might get brake dust. You might wash your car and get some soap residue washing down. We get forest fires that take out, unfortunately, houses and other structures that have non-organic matter in them that gets brought up into the air, and the ash comes down onto our area. And when it rains, all of these different things in our garbage and our plastic, that all gets washed into our storm drains. That's okay, right? It's going into the storm drain. We won't see it anymore. But where does that actually go? Is it really okay? So this is what people don't always think about. Anything that comes from our house on the left-hand side in this picture, you will see all that household water goes to the wastewater treatment plant. Everything from your sinks, your toilets, your shower, all of that goes to a wastewater treatment plant into the sewer pipes, and it gets fully treated and it goes back into the bay nice and clean, or it gets used for green irrigation. Everything that runs off onto the roads goes into these storm drains. And all of that storm drain runs straight into the bay, straight into the ocean. It does not get treated. We don't have the ability to treat every bit of water that comes through. So if we can get the water that's going into those storm drains cleaner, so it's just the rainwater and it's not the garbage and the plastic and the pet waste, we can help our bay and creeks be cleaner. So as you can see here, we want the blue water going in. We don't want that muddy green water with plastic going in. So there's a couple different types of rainwater harvesting, and we're going to focus today mostly on rain barrels and cisterns, but I want to briefly touch on rain gardens and permeable pavements, which there'll be future webinars on later this spring. So permeable pavement is a really great tool both for your own house and for municipalities. A lot of the local towns are turning to this for sidewalks. There's three main types. You can have on the left-hand side pavers with built-in spacing. So that allows the water to soak into the ground in between where these pavers are. Porous cement is a newer one that is really great for sidewalks and hard surfaces that you want to be smooth enough to be accessible. This is what a lot of our towns are turning to now, which is really great. And as you can see in that picture with the hose, the water actually goes right through that porous cement and is able to soak into the ground. You can also just break up non-permeable pavements, leave space between them, like that right-hand picture. That also allows that water to get in the ground. And the main thing we want to do with all of these different rainwater harvesting techniques is we want to slow it, spread it, and sink it. We want to slow that water down, and that way, we want to slow that water down so that the water isn't just rushing straight into those storm drains, carrying all of that pollution with it. And then we want to spread it out onto the ground so that it has a chance to sink into the ground. So by being able to slow it, spread it, and sink it, we can get more water into the ground to refill our aquifers and to filter out towards the bay in a clean way. So if you're interested in permeable paving, check out the May 18th webinar with Bospa. And our next one, we're going to take a quick look at rain gardens. There's also a webinar on native landscaping on May 19th, so I'm going to go very quickly over this. This is everything I just talked about. It is a great example of slow it, spread it, sink it. In this case, on the left-hand side, you can see here we have a bike path, and all the water from that bike path floods into this garden, and it slowly makes its way down through this garden. And there is a storm drain right here in case it overflows. I have never seen it overflow because this garden is so efficient. So how can a simple garden like this capture all of that storm water off the bike path and filter it? The key is the anatomy of a traditional rain garden. And the way it's done is you have different layers. So if you look here, it's actually dug out about 10 to 18 inches deep before you plant and before you do anything. So that's going to be anywhere from 10 to 18 inches, or maybe even a little deeper, depending on how ambitious you are when you're digging it out. You've got 3 to 4 inches of drainage rock at the bottom on top of your native soil. And then you have a very sandy soil called Biosoil Soil. This can just be a very porous sand mixed with your native soil, or you can buy Biosoil Soil with compost and sand. And that's going to be a nice layer that's going to help infiltrate that water into the ground. And then on top of that, you want something sturdy to hold it in place. So that's going to be the river rocks. So the river rocks will hold it in place with mulch on the side to hold that water into the ground. And that will fill up during a rain event. And then it will just look dry the rest of the year because it soaks that water into the ground. So it slows that water down enough for it to all soak in without going into a storm drain. So I'm going to move forward a little bit fast through these since we do have webinars coming up to talk a little bit more about native landscaping. But one of the questions I always get is there enough rain for these gardens? Is there enough rain for rain barrels? The answer in short is yes. 1,000 square foot roof or paved area can capture over 600 gallons of rainwater from a 1-inch event. So if you guys want to calculate your harvesting potential for your house, your shed, or anything else, you want to use this equation right here. And I did the math for 1,000 square foot roof in Sunnyvale. So an average rain event is about 1/2 inch of rain, which is about 310 gallons. But over the course of the entire year, the city of Sunnyvale gets about 16 inches of rain. So that's just shy of 10,000 gallons of water that can be captured through those rain events to be used for the summer. It's a lot of water. This is a great equation to use to calculate for your own house or parking area. And now to the main event. We're going to talk a little bit more about rain barrels. Rain barrels are a great way to take that hardscape that is your roof. So the entire area where your house is land that originally any rain that fell on it would have sunk right into the ground. But now, especially in such an urban area, we have a lot of houses, we have a lot of roads, we have a lot of paved areas, and those are all hardscaped areas where the water cannot soak into the ground. So with a rain barrel, you can capture runoff traditionally from a roof, but it can also be captured from sloped areas of ground. But for this case, we're going to talk about a roof. You can capture all that runoff from your roof and then store it to use it later when the ground isn't saturated from that event. So you don't need to use as much municipal water to irrigate your landscaping. You're not going to have that crazy flooding that we see on the side of the roads during every event in this area where the water's just running down the sides of the road. If every house had a rain barrel, that water wouldn't be flooding into our storm drains as quickly. It would be slowly soaking into the ground and going into our creeks in a nice, clean, and safe way. It's also going to help your house. It's going to minimize the moisture around your building foundation during those rain events. A lot of people will find in this area their house will start to sink if they get too much water in certain areas. We're going to get those nice, cleaner creeks. And if you put in a rain barrel, you get to talk about it with community, and it's a great education tool to help other people realize how important it is to help clean up our water, especially in the Bay Area where we don't have enough water that we can be wasting it and having dirty creeks and our fish having trouble. So a lot of people ask what types of roofs can work for this. And you can do rainwater harvesting with any roof type. The most efficient, which we really don't have in this area, but maybe on a shed, is tin. Tin roofs will actually pull they will condensate, so you'll get moisture even in the mornings. I have a very small 4 by 6 foot shed with a tin roof on it. And even, when we haven't had any rain, I get about half a gallon of water every night from it, just because of the condensation on that roof from the fog that we get here in the Bay Area. The other roof types are great. They're not quite that efficient. You're probably not going to be capturing the fog, but any actual storm event, you will be able to capture a significant amount of water from your roof. When you are wanting to irrigate a root vegetable garden, you need to ask certain questions. You want to make sure that if you have a asphalt shingle or a wood cedar shingle or a rubber or foam flat roof, you want to make sure that those aren't treated with algicides or herbicides before you run that water into your plant. Most modern roofs are not. They won't leach. So just talk to the manufacturer and find out before you put in your root vegetable garden and irrigate it with something that's been treated with an herbicide that's going to kill your plants or not be healthy for you to eat. So most roots are going to be totally fine, especially the cement or the ceramic or clay roofs or a tin roof. They're going to be very healthy plants. They'll love the rainwater. When you're choosing your system, you want to think about that roof size. So we did that equation earlier, and you want to take that equation and figure out for one downspout how much water actually goes into that downspout. How many downspouts do you have on your house? Does all of your water go in one downspout? Do you have 4 downspouts that are about equal? Do you have 2 downspouts that not much water comes out of and most of them comes out the other 2? Consider where your water's coming out. It's great before you do an installation to go out in the rain and walk around your house and see what's happening with that rain, where the water's going. You want to take a look at your installation space. If your downspout is directly in front of your walkway, and that's the only way you have to get out to your garage, to get to your front door, you may not want to put a rain barrel right in front of your front door. it's not going to be easy for you to walk past. You want to think about your space and see if you have a space that's not going to be in the way for that barrel to sit. You also want to make sure that you have a very sturdy ground for the barrel. You can dig out a little bit and put in gravel to level. You can build a frame to fill with gravel, or if you already have a poured concrete pad, you can set it on that. So just think about what's going to be sturdy. These barrels are very heavy. You know, 1 gallon of water is a little bit over 8 pounds. So when you get up to 50 or 200 gallons of water, it gets heavy quickly. You also want to think about where your overflow is going to go. When your rain barrel fills up, where will all the extra water go? Do you have a garden space or a lower swale area that you can run that rainwater into? You don't want that rainwater going back towards your house and giving you all the issues that the barrel is going to fix. And you want to think about aesthetics. You want to make sure you like the barrel you choose. You want to make sure you like what it looks like wherever you choose to put it. You don't want it to be an eyesore for your house. And some barrels are more attractive than others. I really like the way this one was hand painted, and you can hand paint a lot of them. I can't, I'm not that artistic. Anatomy of a rain barrel. So kind of started to talk about this. Starting from the top down, you're gonna have your inflow where the water's coming into the system. And I'm gonna try for yellow, since we already have red on the page. So we got our water coming in the top, and then our water is gonna flow down and fill up the barrel. So maybe yellow wasn't the best choice color for water. You wanna screen that water before it comes into your barrel. So depending on what type of system you install, you might just use window screening, or you might use something called a leaf eater. This is a leaf eater in this top left picture here. And you can see it's just a screen on a stand at an angle so that when the water hits it and there's leaves and debris from your roof, it just wants to kind of flow off and the water can go through the screen into your barrel. When you have water in your tank, you might want to know how much water there is. So something like a depth gauge is a great accessory to have. It's not necessary. You can tap your hand up the side of the barrel and that will let you know when it starts to sound hollow, you're into the empty part of the barrel, and when you get the thunk thunk, you're in the full part. So you can figure out about how full your barrel is pretty easily without a gauge. There are depth gauges that you can actually have on the barrel and also in your kitchen that send the signal to the one in the kitchen so that you don't even need to go out to your barrel to check it. That's really great if you have barrels either below ground or in a crawl space underneath your house, so you don't have to get into them regularly. Your overflow, we already talked about. You want to make sure that that's going somewhere. On this particular barrel, that overflow is going about 20 feet away to a rain garden where it soaks into the ground. I recommend strapping all barrels. It's earthquake proofing on your own property. It is your choice. With the shorter squat barrels, you may not need that. For the slim lines, they're pretty tall and thin. I absolutely strap all of them, and it makes it very sturdy, earthquake proofing. The next thing you want to think about is your outflow. So how are you going to use your water? In this case, we have two different setups. The top picture, you can see the water comes out, and then there's a valve to go to the rain garden or a valve to go to the hose. And so for this system, you have the option of using this rainwater in two ways. In this bottom one, you can see we have the water coming in, and then there are two separate drip timers. In this case, one goes to a soaker hose around a struggling redwood tree that we're trying to give a little bit extra water. And the other one goes to a very small native garden. And they're on different timers set for different amounts of time because these gardens need, this garden and tree need different amounts of water. So Chris, feel free to, yes.
Did you want to take a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so someone asked, if everyone collects rainwater, will this reduce the amount of water that we refill our aquifers?
It will actually increase the amount of water that is available to refill our aquifers, because we're going to be doing that slow it, spread it, and sink it. So instead of having the rainwater rushing off into our streets, flowing down our storm drains, into our creeks, making our creeks rise and run really, really fast all the way out to the bay, this will slowly let the water sink in, refill our aquifers, which will fill up our creeks and let them run at a more desirable, slower pace into the bay in a healthier way that's a little bit healthier and cleaner for all the fish and critters that live in the water, and healthier for all the birds and wildlife as well. So it will actually help, absolutely help increase the amount of water for our aquifers. So going back to the barrel anatomy, thank you, Christian, for the question. So we talked a little bit about the inflow and overflow. The really, really important thing is screening. It is absolutely important that we screen, that we screen both the inflow and the overflow. Someone mentioned mosquito larvae in our original What Do You Think Of? And the screening is a legal requirement, and it's also common sense, because we don't want mosquitoes in these systems. We do not want to provide mosquitoes a place to breed. We don't want that at all. So to prevent that, you put a screen anywhere that you're having water going in or out of your system that does not have a valve. So anywhere that mosquitoes could come in, it has to be screened. Usually that's your inflow and your overflow. This is also going to keep sediment and debris out of your system, so it's going to give you a cleaner system. But the main thing is we do not want mosquitoes in there. And this system on the bottom, you can see, is actually really interesting. I'm going to get some red ink so it's easier to see. So the water comes down your downspout like this, and then it'll actually get caught in this nice rubber gasket. It'll flow into this hose and into your barrel. When your barrel fills, it will actually come back out, and it will go up and over that and then back down your downspout. So if you have a French drain, or you have a downspout that already runs into a garden or somewhere, and you just want to divert 50 or 100 gallons into your rain barrel, but you want the rest of the water to continue to go where it was already going, this type of diverter is really good. It combines the inflow and the overflow and allows you a system to just capture the amount of water you're able to capture, and it lets all the rest of the water go where it was going. And very easy to install. It's a small drill hole in your downspout. We talked already about the output. If you do want to set up a drip irrigation, it's really important to have a filter on the bottom as well. Even with your screening and your mosquito netting on your inflow for your rain barrel, you'll get small sediment in there. And this is a very fine screen, very easy to clean, that will keep that from clogging up your drip irrigation. With rain barrels, you need to buy gravity fed or zero pressure drip irrigation systems and timers. And those are specifically designed to not be hooked up to a hose or municipal water, but to be hooked up to something that does not have a pump on it. And that is going to allow more water to come out of the holes, since there is no pressure except gravity behind them. And if you do accidentally hook your system up to a hose at that point, it will actually blow out the pipe and you'll have to replace your system. So it is a different system. You can't just install a barrel and hook it up to your pre-existing system unless you put a pump in it before it to increase the pressure to your already municipal irrigation system, if you have drip irrigation. With rain barrels, I talk about drip irrigation. You don't want to hook up a rain barrel to do spray irrigation. Spray irrigation is very ineffective. And with rainwater, there are regulations that it needs to be used with drip irrigation or watering cans or run into a bioswale creek. You are not supposed to be spraying it into the air, and it's going to work a lot better as a drip irrigation system. You won't use as much water, and it's healthier for the plants because they get the water right at the roots where they need it. We already talked about leaf feeders a little bit. Here's just a picture of two different styles. Everyone always asks me how much the accessories cost or how much a whole system costs. So I've added those to the slides just to put this out, but these are accessories. You do not need them. This is, you know, the cute shoes that go with the purse. This is something nice to go with the barrel. It's not necessary. It's just an accessory. First flush diverter is also an accessory. If you live in a very high dust, high particulate area, or you have, you know, a giant oak tree right above your downspout, which I actually do, that drops a lot of pollen and things right on it, a first flush diverter is really good to get those first particulates out. The way it works is the water comes into the system. As it fills up, this ball will flow up to a rubber seal. And once that ball is at the top, it will seal the system, and then all the rainwater will continue into your barrel. And this just gets that first flush, the dirtiest water gets kind of locked into that, and then you clean that out later. And that way you get cleaner water into your barrel. I've installed them on about a third of the systems I've installed. It's very site by site. We already talked a little bit about the depth gauges. The one on the left is the one that has the remote reading you can set up in your kitchen or your bathroom or your bedroom if you want to check your water level as you're heading to bed at night. Pumps are also a great option. I've installed these at a few sites. You can get ones that are just on demand, so they're plugged into the wall. When you have it hooked up to a hose and you turn the hose on, it will start pumping, and you can get a little bit more pressure in your system, so you're not just relying on gravity. It's very much a personal decision whether or not you want to pump. A lot of times, if you're into drip irrigation, you don't need that. You just want to make sure your water is running a little bit downhill. Cisterns are larger systems, so you get a little bit bigger, you get a little bit more capacity, you're going to have a little bit more water to use during the dry season, and just a few more options. You get a little bit more pressure because there's more weight behind that water. We already talked about over one gallon of water is over 8 pounds. So when you get up to a barrel like this one on the left, which is 500 gallons, you're talking about over 4,000 pounds, over 2 tons. So it's very heavy. You want a really sturdy base underneath it, but you have pressure in your water already to use to water a little bit farther away when it's full, because it has 4,000 pounds pushing down on that water that's at the very bottom. So you can get a slightly more pressurized system without using a pump. There's also below ground cisterns. These always do have a pump. This is not something you're gonna do it yourself at home. This is something that you would hire a contractor to come in and install. If you live in the very urban area here in the Bay Area, you probably don't have room for one of these. Some of the other systems might be a better option for you. As you get a little bit farther away from the bay, property sizes go up a bit, and you might have a little bit more room for a nice cistern underground. These are, engineered systems, and you will have a contractor come install these for you, and they will walk you through everything you need to know that's specific to your system. But these are a great option to have a much higher capacity. If you like me, live in the very urban area and your house lot is very small, there are ways to get that 200 plus gallon capacity without having a cistern. You can daisy chain multiple barrels together. These are 2 different ones that I installed throughout the Bay Area, and you can do anywhere from 2 barrels together to 32, 52, however many barrels you want to line up in a row or zigzag around your house. You can turn corners with them. You can wrap your entire house with these if you so desired. Usually you see 2 to 8 of them together for a system. And it's very easy to add on extra barrels later. All you need to do is switch out this part right here from the 90 to a T, and you can put a whole nother barrel on the side and add as many as you want. So these are really a great option. You can do this with almost any type of barrel. The basic kits that you get online, these are very good for DIY installations, very easy to do. These run usually $80 and up if you get the full kit together. Sometimes you can get it a little cheaper if you're getting multiple kits to put them together. They have every shape and size imaginable online, and they come with instructions. They are very easy to install. Food grade barrels are a really great option as well. A lot of people don't realize this, but food grade barrels, they store Coca-Cola syrup, oil, all sorts of different food items, liquids that come in, and they can only be used once. Once they are used for food, they cannot be used for food again. These are regulations that are in place. So if you're able to take one of these barrels that already had olive oil in it and repurpose it to give it a second life as a rain barrel, it is a great use. These barrels on the right hand side picture all had different Coca-Cola product syrups in it. One was like grape Fanta, and when we open it up you could still smell like waves of grape coming over you. And you just hose it out a little bit, clean it, and you install it. And a little bit extra sugar on your plants, it's not going to hurt them. They don't mind it. And after one season, all of that residue is totally gone, and you just have wonderful rainwater. All of these ones on the left are recycled olive oil containers. There are 9 barrels here, and these are all 55 gallons. So this is at Arastradero Preserve in Palo Alto, and it waters their native pollinator garden. So they're great ways to connect these, and they can be painted to look quite attractive. Wine barrels are a great one for this area because we have so many wineries, and it's often pretty easy to get an old barrel from the winery. When you drill into it, you get that great wine smell, and the fermented grapes are great for your plants. They just love the extra little bit of nutrients. So you may or may not be able to get the rebate with this. Each city is a little bit different on those, but it's a great option if you like that aesthetic for your yard. Maintenance is very easy for your barrels. Just keep your gutters clean. You really only need to do this a couple times a year. You should be doing it anyway. Otherwise, your gutters can get really heavy and fall off your house. So adding a barrel shouldn't change your gutter cleaning timeline. Check your leaf eater or your screens, a couple times a year. Just make sure you don't have too much buildup in there, so the water is not going to want to run in. Empty and clean your first slush diverter if you have one. Once a year, just look over your whole barrel and make sure all the valves and everything looks like it's working okay. Usually before we're coming into the rainy season, so that your system's going to work right. Every once in a while, you want to make sure you use all your harvested water. For most people, they'll use it up over the summer and then refill it for the next year. But if you forget to use your water in the summer somehow, it's okay. That water can sit there for years and years. It's not dirty water, it's rainwater. It'll get a little bit of an odor. It cannot get UV in these systems, so you're not going to have a crazy algae growth or anything growing in it because there's no UV getting into these barrels. So you can still use it. If your rainwater sits there for 5 years and then you turn on your system and use it into the ground, it's going to go. It's going to give your plants wonderful nutrients. Every once in a while, it is good to just take a hose and rinse out the inside of your barrels, because you will get that fine sediment, and that'll just make your whole system run a little bit smoother. And just use your water. It's really important. Use that water. Use it regularly. It's great if you can every storm empty your rain barrels and then fill it for the next event. And that way you get more water going into the ground and refilling our creeks and our aquifers. There's so many ways to use it. We've talked about this. You can even connect it to toilets for flushing, but you do need a permit to do that. And, you know, it's just great to get this sinking into our groundwater. So it looks like we have about 20 minutes for Q&A. And there's also a lot of information on the FOSQA website. So we're gonna leave that open, but just to remind you, all of our wonderful workshops, webinars coming up. While we open up the floor for questions, feel free to raise your hand or type them in.
Chris, there is a question. Where would be the best place to find food grade barrels?
So you can go online. There are a lot of used olive oil barrels and other barrels if you just look on the internet. Locally, there's a company, Blue Barrels, and it is, I believe, bluebarrel.org. And they sell those blue barrels with full instructions and kits. And if you buy a multiple barrel kit from them, they also give you access to their website. They have YouTube channels and lots of really great resources. And they're based out of Santa Rosa. So it is a local company that started this, and they actually sell nationwide now, which is pretty incredible seeing that starting in the Bay Area.
Terrific. Oh.
So I also have a list of native plants to consider for your landscaping, but there will be a great webinar on native landscaping on May 19th, and you can also check out bayareagardening.org. This is just a personal list I put together because a lot of people ask when we're talking about rain barrels and rain gardens.
Are there any other questions?
I know it was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I spoke a little fast to get through it, so don't hesitate. There are a lot of local sources for buying barrels. This is one of my questions. Are there local sources for buying a rain barrel? So if you want the Blue Barrel website, they'll have you go over and pick up your barrel in Hayward, and they will ship all of the parts to you, but it is a local company. If you are looking for one of those kits, any of our local hardware stores will sell some sort of rain barrel. Larger pipe supplies like Granger will usually have the larger cisterns. Sometimes you can get recycle cisterns that were used for different food projects that are one use, or like IBC totes that, you know, previously had something in them that are being recycled. If you do decide to go the route of like a recycled IBC tote, they are transparent. They do allow light in. You have to paint them or cover them with a UV resistant tape of some sort. Usually just a paint layer, a couple layers of paint is really good, because you want to make sure you don't have the UV going into your barrel. We don't want to grow any extra funky things. If employees are on site in Foster City, please stop by Building B lobby for a succulent. If you're on site at Hayward, please stop by Pier 39 for a succulent. This is from Veronica. I'm just going to read that out for everyone. Well, Christiane, do you have any other comments or questions for me?
No, I don't, but thank you very much, Chris, for participating in this webinar. I found it very interesting, and I hope everybody else found it interesting as well. And if you have any questions about BOSCA's rebate programs, if you're, you know, a customer of one of our participating agencies, please feel free to contact me. My email is cbarth@bosca.org. Thank you. And I think we are down to like 14 people. Any last questions? Okay. I think it.
Well, thank you all for joining us today and sticking around for the questions. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.